Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thank you for joining us today on Call-In Friday. Let me give you the number right away in case anybody's been busting at the guts to talk to me about any issue that's on your mind. 718-717-8296. Last night I made a video on my YouTube channel, Nuts for Art, and I transposed those numbers. I said 817. So it's actually 718-717-8296 if anybody wants to give us a call. Last week, that was kind of interesting. On Call-In Friday, I asked Vince Easley to join me so that it wouldn't just be me bantering around ideas that are on my heart while I wait for my listeners to put their courage feet on, give me a call, and whether you agree with me or not, it would be really swell to hear from you and have a conversation. How do you like that word, swell? I like that word. Anyways, there's a lot that's been happening the last week, the last 2 weeks. It is off the charts, kind of a free-for-all out there. I mean, it's open fascism. We know that we live in an open fascist state. And I am dumbfounded this week, weekend. Many of you know I live in Eugene, Oregon, and there is something called the PIELC, P-I-E-L-C. It is what do they call this? It's the Environmental Law Conference that is here in the Northwest every year. They do this. And a long time ago when I discovered that Fukushima was a major problem, that everything was not okay, and that was actually around the late part of May 2012. Up until that time, I actually believed what we were being told, just like millions of Americans. And I called the Environmental Law Division over at the University of Oregon and asked them, hey, I want to get a class action lawsuit against TEPCO. They can't just poison the Pacific and kill everything and send all this radiation here and be held unaccountable. And that was when I discovered about the Price-Anderson Act, folks. Many of you know that it puts a cap on how much these corporations and individuals have to pay. The individuals can never be held accountable. The corporations can never be held accountable. Nobody goes to jail. They do have a maximum that these corporations can pay, and that has gone up, and it's incredibly, stupidly low. But we have this environmental law conference here in Eugene, Oregon, and it is just insane. They have all of their conferences. It opened up last night, Thursday night, going through March 6th, Sunday. Not one conversation about the effects of nuclear radiation or pollution on our environment or anything Not one word. Now, there might be opportunities for them to discuss it, but it is not in the titles of any of this. And I am just like blown away. I'm actually going to go there on Saturday and protest. I'm going to go to some of these things, and I'm going to bring some information about Fukushima. I'm bringing handouts. And, there is Rick Gold with Eugene Peaceworks. He is the only real active anti-nuke activist. He's going to go table at the Environmental Law Conference. They're going to go set up a table, hand out flyers. I actually have some flyers that I'm going to bring to them. And they're going to hand out flyers to people about the catastrophe of Fukushima. This is a life-changing event, and an environmental law conference, these people must be convinced that there is really no problem with radiation. I mean, we know, we heard that Native American woman speaking in St. Louis about the catastrophe on the reservations that they are enduring, which were not discussed, actually. So maybe I think in fact that's what I'll do. Maybe if anybody out there knows who she was, I'm going to make an effort to reach out to her and see if we can get in touch with her and interview her about what is going on. I mean, I will read to you some of these things because this thing starts March 4th, Friday, today, 8:30 to 9:45. So it is going on in about a half an hour. The Clean Power Plan in flux, the current status of state implementation and strategies for moving forward. So that is Oregon State University School of Business, OSU. So they're the nuclear place. I wouldn't expect them to ever talk about radiation. Organizing in opposition to LNG in Oregon. That's at the EMU. And then at 10 to 11:20, you see how they get them really quick, where deer and antelope play, reducing and retiring public land grazing. So there was one of them on here, I thought, in the flyer it said something like how we can stop the Bundy coalition from moving forward. How do we protect our lands? It was kind of I thought you guys should get that brochure. It was kind of funny. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that listen to this radio station that really believe that, we shouldn't have any of those, quote, public lands. So the number to call in is 718-717-8296. And if anybody wants to give me a call, please do. Don't be shy. I had Vince on last week to kind of buffer me constantly talking. He did offer this morning to be in the background, just kind of waiting, but I didn't honestly think that was fair to ask him to just sit there in the waiting and then chirp in when he wanted, because frankly he could call. I think he does listen to this show quite avidly. Thank you, Vince. And he's a big defender of speaking out on people's rights, and he's a perfect example how to have a civil conversation with people that you don't agree with. So I want to get on to this agenda because it is mind-blowing. Nothing on there. There is one tomorrow morning from 10:35 to 11:50. Fishing for solutions moving forward toward ecosystem-based fisheries management. I wonder if they are going to talk about the radiation that's coming from Fukushima. Wow. Or this one, sewage sludge. So I wonder if they're going to talk about lead or the radiation that's coming from St. Louis, the sludge in the water, or even from Hanford. Last week, I don't know if many of you know this, but last week, Hanford got, penalized millions of dollars. The NRC just whacked down a chunk of money. They said they had to pay them because guess what? As if they could actually have a dollar figure. They released plutonium. The NRC found that there was plutonium strewn. There was massive amounts over the limit of plutonium just blowing around in the desert. They hadn't actually covered up some plutonium. I mean, the disregard the nuclear industry has for our environment, and the disregard even these so-called environmentalists. They actually don't believe that nuclear pollution is harmful to the planet, or it would be front and center on 2016 agenda at the Environmental Law Conference here in Eugene. That is just stunning. Over 60% of the uranium tailings is on Native American lands. And those children are suffering. There are genetic defects. People have trouble having babies. I mean, all these weird diseases that our children are having, it's not the parents' fault, and it doesn't all come from GMO, although that does push us right over the edge. Or maybe it's the other way around. We were being pushed over the edge, and then Fukushima happened, and we just got pushed over. And it is really important. Although, you know what? My niece, 28 years old, still eats fish. Whatever, who cares? Doesn't matter. So let me give you the number again if anybody wants to call in. It's 718-717-8296. You are listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is Friday, March 4th, and this is Call-In Friday. I encourage any of our listeners or anyone in the chat room to actually give us a call, and let's have a conversation about what's on your heart. And I don't even care if you want to... Oh, here is Mr. Vince Easley. So let me add him in. Good morning. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Hi, Vince.
Hi, Lonnie. Hey, thanks for the acclimates. I wanted to add in here, and I think this is important, that over here at Real Liberty Media Chat, Juana Taco, one of the listeners listening now and last week, said, okay, there it is, says, she doesn't agree, and he says that I felt that, but didn't hear her say last week, and that's talking about the what you call that pamphlet about the Bundys.
You mean what do you mean the pamphlet?
Oh, we were talking about pamphlet. Anyways, about the Bundys in the movement. I guess if you could.
Oh yeah. Like I mean, I actually do think that the BLM has, I think we do need to have public lands. I believe in that. But the way it's being handled, I agree, it's screwed. But the whole thing with the Bundy is I think he's just, he just wants to run his own country. I don't actually agree with that whole thing. And I kind of think that it's I think it is somewhat of an instigated instance. It's kind of a shit stir, if you know what I mean. I think that it has been infiltrated by our own government, like the FBI. I don't know which government's the deep state. That's what I call it. It's a deep state, because they want to see who's willing to come out with their guns, who's willing to point guns. To me, it was just a shock to watch these people point a gun at a federal agent and nothing happened.
But they did in Oregon and in Bunkerville. It was a more of like a stand in a gap. Let me back up first and say that as I responded to Juana Taco, I say about you, I said, yeah, that you don't have we don't have the same view and stance, but you do have right stands on other things. So that's what's right with me about you.
Well, this is the thing. I don't think it's about right stands or anything. I think it's really important for us to air how we feel so we can, I'm kind of a consensus person. I'm not stuck on my position entirely. It's so I kind of really believe that it's very important for us to communicate and say what we really feel. That's part of the 4 agreements. You'll get that book soon, by the way, the 4 agreements.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Is number 3 is don't make assumptions. So don't assume people know what you think. It's important for us to be willing to discuss this stuff because nobody thinks that they're wrong. We all think that we have the correct position. And it's, the right or the wrong is, for me, kind of a paradigm that is exclusive and not inclusive. Do you know what I mean? So I'd rather just talk about it and say what I really think. I'm not a gun toter. You know what I mean? I wouldn't, if somebody came into my house, I doubt if I could shoot them. I'm just going to put it to you that way. I might run away. I would definitely run away or hit them over the head, but I don't think I could pick up a gun and shoot somebody. So that's kind of where I'm at. So you see what I'm saying? Seriously hardcore, way on the other side of it. So I don't understand it. Yeah, and I'm not living out in the country. I've never really...
because of our perceptions, and when we're talking about things, which is very important, and you and I think can have a good conversation and be able to discuss our ideas and viewpoints, and when we do so, we're expressing what comes out of something. So we're seeing, say, the situation from Bunkerville or Oregon, and we're seeing results. You know, the infiltration, certainly infiltration. That's a given in any movement throughout history.
So you
there is
think this was
manipulation.
100%
So we're seeing what results, but it's a distraction also from what actually is. When I say right, it is that which I've described as undisputable, in a sense of this life, liberty, and property. That
the morality
we
you're
that.
talking about from an ethics and morality point of view. I get you.
Right.
I mean,
that has to be considered, right?
Yeah, well, I think so this is what I think about our conversation. This is what it really means to be Americans. That when we're talking about we're losing our Constitution, we don't not just losing our Constitution, we're losing what it means as Americans. Not only have they subverted it legally and technically, but they're subverting it in a cultural sense. We don't feel we're more divided. People are much more divided, and it did have everything to do with Barack Obama being pivoted to the presidency by the nuclear industry, in my view. You know what I mean? So that's
right.
Another conversation. I don't think that was an accident either. So, I mean, I think we are victims of a very deep state. But I think it's really important for us. The only way to overcome that is for us to decide we're all on the same team. We're all on the same side. Like, we all want basically the same thing. How we've been trained to think of, and kind of how our upbringing makes us believe is the correct way to do it. That's where consensus comes in. We have to be willing to talk about what we think are the important values and figure out where we can meet, and then figure out how to make that happen. Part of what happens, especially with the YouTube venue, even this venue, the radio and the television, things, how do we form this consensus of people and change it and change I personally don't want to pick up guns and point them at people and say, I don't like how you're running. Although I have to say, we do live in an openly fascist state. Like,
That's right.
That's what I was saying, Vince. If those people had been black, any of them, they would have all been dead. Period.
Well, yeah, there was black folks at Bundy Ranch and other races too. I hate that word race, but anyways, I think what's important, what should come out of this, is a meeting of folks that are of different opinion and say, wait a minute, where can we agree with what needs to be done and moving forward on this? Okay, so we can see a perceived wrong by the government against all people, and to separate it and say, well, we just got to think about the Indians, or we just got to think about protecting environment, because you know what, the BLM and the other agencies, they're not there for that. They're not there for protecting the resources for the future of generations to come. They're securing these as assets for securities, and we're all being robbed. And to think that,
the other thing,
we're excluding somebody by agreeing with somebody else, then that's not the case, I'd say, or shouldn't be, anyways.
I think I completely agree with what you just said, but I would also say that I think part of the reason that they want to control these public lands so ferociously is not just for the resources, it's for the pollution. They want to cover up the waste. I mean, they have just used it as I was telling you that story last week about Kevin Blanch photographing a guy going. The nuclear pollution was pouring out of a nuclear plant and going right into public lands.
Well, can I say about what really bothers me right now is these arrests that are being carried out now by federal SWAT teams. People like Jerry DeLemus, just arrested back in New Hampshire. His wife is a government representative. I forget what position she holds back there. He ran for sheriff. He came to the Bundy Ranch in 2014.
What's his name?
I met him. I interviewed him.
Again?
And you know what? I deleted that. I didn't even upload it because then I was learning to speak with people, and I felt like I was kind of pretentious in a type of trying to ambush him and try to. But for me, I said, you know what? That's not my style, and I'm not even putting that up. Jerry came on with me a couple of weeks ago. He's now been arrested.
What was he
Another one of the
arrested
Bundy
for?
sons has been arrested. You know, people that felt like the government is overstepping, and we need to stand in the gap. And you know what that is? That's a hero, a person that stands in the gap despite their fear. People of media, Jason Patrick, Pete Santilli, whatever you think about him. Other people are being held without bail because they had a redress against the government, and their response is that expression of the fascist state that we live in. And right now, at this very point in time, we are seeing the foretold history being done. And when we wake up and we're like, wow, where'd the Nazis come from? They're here. And speak up, and now we got to talk about it. Not about where we disagree, but where we all see that common place of aggression against those that are in these seats of decision that are against us. We have to resist and not be silent.
Well, it's exactly what happened to Megan Rice. With our country put an 84-year-old nun in jail. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, how worse does that get when you put an 84-year-old nun in jail for a peaceful protest at a nuclear power plant? She stayed in jail for 3 years. There was a huge legal fight to help free her. I mean, you know the story of Megan Rice, don't you?
Yeah.
So tell me this gentleman's name and tell me what happened to him and what his story is, because I honestly do not. Maybe that's a point of contention here, because it is about social control and social engineering. All of this, it is all wrapped around. This is what I mean. I think the issue with nuclear and pollution cannot be unwrapped from the fascist control of the way that the whole thing is going. I think it's all tied into one thing. So tell me about this man that just got arrested, and why did he get arrested?
All right, and first of all, Juana Taco says whatever they want the land for, it's for their benefit and not the public. Yes, I agree. Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm overloaded here. I've got inboxes coming, so responding with everybody as a liaison for you. I'll catch up with you in a minute. But Jerry DeLemus. I'm waiting for it to open. Yeah, he was arrested a day or two ago. He lives in Rochester, New York. And I'm sorry, it's not popping up for me. But anyways, his wife is a representative back there in some type of governmental position. He came to there's a list of charges, 7 or 8, 9 charges or something. Basically, a lot of them are the same that the Bundys have been charged with, and the others that stood in support there, whether in Oregon or, yes, I will wait.
They were saying he's a campaign official for Donald Trump.
Not an official. He's a person like our very great Hans Cooper, otherwise known as Hans Dietrich, is an avid Trump supporter. Now,
this is what this is.
Lunacy in that, but
he was co-chair of Veterans for Trump in New Hampshire, and they arrested him in connection with the 14 Bundy Ranch standoff in Nevada.
Correct.
Federal charges against him included conspiracy to commit an offense against the United States, threatening a federal enforcement officer, attempting to impede or injure a federal law enforcement officer, and several firearms charges, the newspaper reported. This is my question about this. Why did it take 2 years for them to decide they were going to arrest him? Do you understand that logic?
Well, he had been in contact with him. At one point, they canceled a meeting with Jerry for, they claimed, a fear of ambush or reprisal from what I just say maybe like-minded folks, or what they would deem to be extremists. They're setting the future events. They're setting the stage, that is, for some of the individuals that they might seek to arrest to respond in a fashion of I'm not submitting to violence. I know there's a few people that have gone to ground now. There's a real fear there. I mean, out of the hundreds of people that were involved out there that came and stood in the gap, I among them. Now, at what point do they say, Well, what possibility is that they come to arrest me for having been there? I mean, I'm up on the stage there during the time when I love it when Clive and Bundy tells Sheriff Gillespie how the cows eat the cabbage, and oh, that's just epic. That is American. That's classic. That's John Wayne. He's saying, look, I don't care what your costume claims are or your shiny badge. You know, if you're going to stand in this office, you're supposed to be here for protecting people, and he failed. And sheriffs around the country are failing. And men like Jerry DeLemus, you know, whether I agree with his constitutional stand, and I certainly disagree with their stand on immigration. And Trump, what a chump. That's my opinion of those. But you know what? It don't stop me from appreciating the great man that Jerry DeLemus is. He's a man of high character, and I would endorse him matter our different
let me just get clear with you, Vince, since we're talking about this, because this is something that maybe it's becoming abundantly clear to me that I completely don't understand the point of view of the like that the BLM has no right. I mean, your position is that the BLM has no right to exist, that we ought to do away with that entire agency, correct?
Well, that'd be a roundabout way of saying, yeah, there would be a roundabout way of saying, yeah, I agree to that, but...
well, there's nothing wrong with just saying it directly. I mean, because I'm trying to understand this, because to me, you see, what I think of the BLM is protecting, like, like
they're not protecting, no. That's not their job even. The position that these agencies have is as management, and there are certain aspects of this management that includes the right of travel upon it, the right of use to the land by not only the miners and the ranchers, but to hikers, to protect and have concern and care for the environment and the indigenous life there, and it all plays a role one in another, and so they're taking and excluding this access to the land, which is for the common good of the people. So they've lost their way. They're not doing the duty that they should be.
That's true. I mean, this is where the conflict, I think, really is. It's really by the fascism that's engulfed our every aspect, every agency. Like, there isn't anything in our government that works efficiently and quickly and without regard to corporate interests. And that is really where it's at. Like, the BLM is almost like they will do, you know, what the big interests want them to do with it. The minerals, you know, these big mining companies, they're like right now, you know, they are talking about mining the, what do you call the Grand Canyon, uranium mining the Grand Canyon. Seriously.
Yeah, that's what it's about. The fascists, protection of the fascists.
You know, and last year they passed a law that said that now the Congress can pass laws so that we can actually mine and extract on land that's protected by the Bureau of Land Management. They can, for reasons that are, if they're necessary for the country, we can go in and use the resources. So this is what I thought when that law passed. That's what I called Ron Wyden and asked him, well, what's the point of having the Bureau of Land Management if you can go in and take whatever you want off of these public managed lands? Like, seriously, that just doesn't make sense to me, because this is what the mission statement says. It says to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of America's public lands for the use and enjoyment of present and future generations. Wow. So what's the point? What out of, like, this guy, Jerry DeLemus, what changes do you want? What is it that you're asking for?
Me? I'm not asking
well,
anything.
Not you, but what is that movement? What does that movement want to have happen? Like, what would they want? Like the Bundys, what would be their thing, their end result of what is it that they want?
Okay, let me premise this by saying that when I went to Bunkerville and they were walking around asking people for their IDs and to join up, I'm not a joiner. I'm a plainer, just a plain old me that doesn't want to be infringed upon. I don't want to. I don't want to be a burden or be burdened. I have what I expect is natural rights in this life. So when we have an agency that, like you said, this is little more than a fascist dictatorship that's saying you can't do this. When you have what belongs to you and it's being taken away, that's what the Bundys say. Look, they don't mind paying fees. They don't mind having a management agency, but the management agency in charge now, they have a dispute. It's like an arbitration, right? So they send people out there to steal their property, and this isn't only with the Bundys. There's a great many ranchers. There's where is it at? Up Wyoming, maybe it was. These people that have a small outfit, grass-fed beef. They had some donkeys and I don't know, some birds or something like that. But anyways, the government come in and said, your animals are underfed. And anyways, long story or short story of it is they seized them and are charging them $35,000 to get them back. And this is
oh my gosh,
the prosecutor is a special prosecutor, and his salary is paid by this I forget who it is, like a PETA organization. Anyways, so they're putting these people in place to carry out an objective, and that's, you know, just like I said, it's our foretold history being done right now. So if we're not resisting, and that's what the Bundys are doing, that's what the organization, if you want to call that, the organization of people or gathering of people.
How is it
that's
that
what they're doing?
How is it that that site in Oregon got selected? Why there?
Well, I would say it was probably a last-ditch effort in desperation to, because the Hammonds they went and turned themselves in for the resentencing. See that because of this agenda, they didn't feel like, well, we got to get these Hammonds out because they still got their land. It's a land grab, okay? So, anyways, I think it was one of these injected influences there, like you was talking about, infiltration. I think it was a whisper in somebody's ear that led to that decision. That's my opinion. Not a good decision, obviously. A lot of the good decisions were not made after that on both accounts, both parties. I think there should have been definitely an exit strategy, and there was many offered. There was an idea to move to a more favorable county in perhaps even another state with a constitutional sheriff to occupy a rancher's land, to move off of public land. I think that would have been a great idea. But you know what's going to happen next time? It may not happen next time because people are going to be in fear, and they're going to think, well, if I go, I know what the deal is. It's going to be a stand in life, because it's obviously been shown by the government agencies that you don't have the right to protest. And it matters nothing that they had guns on their hips. That's not an issue. Protest is protest, and to stand for redress of grievances, because they weren't being addressed. They were not being addressed by the officials that claim authority. Their answer, we see their answer. It's kidnapping and murder.
Yes, it is. Well, it's exactly the same thing with the nuclear issue, Vince. What do you think is going on in St. Louis? It's murder. What's going on in New York? That's murder. Entergy is telling the NRC that the 220 million becquerels per liter going, of iodine 129 on top of the tritium going into the Hudson Bay is nothing. That's nothing.
Murder.
It is murder. And the idea is exactly right. And this is the interesting thing, because your issue is about the land, and my issue is actually about the land.
That's not my issue. My issues are very, very extensive. I like I said, I want to be clear on this.
This is really a constitutional issue.
But I don't stand with all their ideas and all their decisions, but I do stand with them, and that they had that right to stand
And so
in
you
protest.
really believe that this, see, I have really in the back of my heart thought that this was just a big fake setup to see who would come out so they could count heads, take names and count heads. Honestly, that's what I thought about both of
That's part
those
of it.
events.
That's part of it.
You know, because really, it's just kind of like here on the radio. I know for a fact that that they, they look into my computer on my computer. You know what I mean? Like anybody that goes against what they want. Why do you think that the Environmental Law Conference in Eugene, Oregon, not one word about Fukushima? Next weekend is the 5-year mark of nuclear volcano destroying the Pacific Ocean and the air, and not one word about the high levels of radiation going into our atmosphere from any of these environmentalists. I don't think that's an accident. These people are afraid to talk because they know exactly what happens when you do start talking. I mean, if I became like a super famous person, I probably would get knocked off. Do you know what I mean? Like if you begin to get any notoriety, even Patty Amino had her brakes lines cut. You know, the woman up in Pennsylvania who fought for 27 years. I mean, yeah, they finally won in the legal sense, and this is where I completely agree with you about this. You know, because you can fight as much as you want legally, but really what they'll do is they'll just wait for people to die.
That's the main plan right there, the slow kill.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, Vince, what do we do about it? And how do we all, obviously the elections are a joke. Like this election has really highlighted how much our votes don't matter. Because on the right, people are saying, yes, we want Trump. For the same reason people on the left want Bernie Sanders, because they're both people who we perceive to be fighting the establishment that's out to kill us. And they're both talking straight talk pretty much.
Yeah, it's not a crown of the hypocrisy. It's certainly another jewel in that crown.
Hey, I'm going to add this call in. Hold on just 1 second.
All right.
Good morning. This is Lonnie Clark here on the Age of Fission radio show. Who am I speaking with?
You're speaking with Tomato in
Hi,
chat.
Miguel.
Hi.
Yeah, I live in Springfield, just a little bit away from you.
I see that. I saw that 541. I was thinking, I wonder who that is.
Yeah, I could probably walk to your house.
Okay. So are you going to go with me to protest over at the Environmental Law
If you'll drive, I'll go. That's tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you a couple of reasons why this Environmental Justice Conference, or whatever it's called, it's being held at OSU. And you know OSU is the...
No, it's not OSU. It's being held at the U of O.
I looked at the Oregon State University, the P, public interest, whatever.
Yeah,
so
but
they're having one there?
Well, the Environmental Law Conferences there's an Environmental Law Division at the University of Oregon, but you're right about the University of Oregon has a lot of conferences, and I think at their own university up there, they're having an extension of it. They're having a few things up there.
Yeah, they are. I was looking at that, and I wondered that's the state college that gets the money from Monsanto and it's the ag college.
Yeah, and they also have their little mini nuclear power plant up there. I go up there and protest. So that's where the scientist Catherine Higley, she came out with a paper about 2 years ago that said Fukushima is producing just about as much radiation as a banana. And so ever since then, the media has been spouting those pack of lies that we're just not being radiated, that it's not that bad. So that's where it comes from. Yeah, we're being bananaed, exactly.
Gosh, I don't like that.
Maybe I think I'll steal that phrase there.
You can have it.
Because honestly, the Environmental Law Conference is just kind of a shock. I actually called them up when I first found out, and they literally, at the Environmental Law Division here at the University of Oregon, I used to go to Mary Woods. She had these climate change meetings. Like, she was jumping up and down wanting people to change their lives, and every week or every 2 weeks she'd give some kind of a talk over there, and I would go to them, and I kind of got to know her. So when Fukushima happened, I was dumbfounded that the university, they actually told me, well, it's none of our business. It's far away. It's too far. We can't. I wanted to start a class action lawsuit against TEPCO. They can't just poison us and radiate us and walk away and lie to us and say, oh, well, we had 3 nuclear meltdowns that we didn't tell you about for 3 months. You know, the rates.
But of course, that'll never go anywhere simply because our own government nuked so many of our own people, too, you know.
Well, they are nuking. I mean, you listen to my show, I assume, on Mondays when the people from St. Louis, I mean, they're being killed. Literally, that is murder. What is happening in St. Louis? People live less than a mile away from a leaking nuclear dump site.
Well, in Indian Point, you know, in New York, the nuclear industry is fraudulent, and it's fraught with lots of problems where they don't even look in the future and see if they can fix anything. You know, it's a short-term solution.
Yes, I get that, but what really stuns me. What do I call you? What's your name again? You want me just to call you
Mike?
Taco? Oh, Mike. Hi, Mike. Okay, Taco. This is what shocks me. I get them. They are really built on greed and avarice, and they have no regard for human life. What really shocks me is that there are millions and billions of us, and we're not stopping them. I mean, I'm probably the only person I know who, in my life, wants to even go out and protest at this law conference. I mean, there's a couple people. There's Rick Gold and his few people from the Eugene Peace Works. They're going to be out there tabling, talking about Fukushima, but no one's protesting and saying, why aren't these people at the Environmental Law Conference? Environmental Law Conference. I'm going to make a list of all the current leaks that are going on when you count them, because we have San Onofre was shut down by the government, but it is too radioactive, and the Navy will not take the land back because it's too radioactive. That's San Onofre, California. We have the WIPP, which blew up and is still leaking, and they're lying about it, but it's still leaking. People are still getting sick. We have Indian Point, which is now going into the Hudson River. We have St. Louis with uranium everywhere. Untold amounts of
We have Hanford, which is poisoning the Columbia River right now as we speak.
Yes, and
we have the Idaho National Nuclear Laboratory up there.
Yes,
we have that one too. I know, and so I am dumbfounded at the nuclear industry, because literally it makes no money. It has subsidies. I believe it was promoted simply so they would have the raw materials for nuclear weapons. I believe that nuclear is ridiculous.
Yes, well, that is why we have it just like that. But what's really stunning is the fact that there is no regard. I mean, on my YouTube channel, I read a book that John Goffman wrote called Nuclear Population Control Through Nuclear Pollution. He wrote it as a warning to say, hey, we need millions and millions of people, because these people are heading on straight on. They really don't care about the loss of life. They want their nuclear weapons. They want to develop this technology. It doesn't even matter. And that was written in 1972. Everything he predicted is correct. And so now what we have is a Nuclear Regulatory Commission who is due to come out with a decision soon whether they're going to be measuring radiation at all. Art Robinson, you live here, right? You remember the Art Robinson theory of a little bit of radiation is good for you?
I've heard of that before, yeah.
Well, that's what if you can actually believe this, the NRC is actually considering adopting that idea. And
when you look at probably who makes up the NRC is probably nuclear energy proponents that went through the revolving door. They went from private industry right to the regulatory agency. Same thing that happens with Monsanto and the EPA and the FDA, right?
I think it even gets worse than that, though. Anybody that gets involved in it. I mean, this is the weird thing. In fact, every politician that, like, even look at Jeff Merkley. Like, Jeff Merkley went to Senate when he first was in the Senate. Jeff Merkley, the first year he was in the Senate, I was so proud of him. He had a great piece of legislation to modify the Price-Anderson Act, because he wanted to be able to hold somebody accountable. What happened up in Hanford is they ignored the law. They were mandated by the NRC by law to dig 40 miles of trenches and triple line the trenches with this nuclear waste resistant plastic. Triple line it for 40 miles, pour the nuclear pollution in there, and let it cool down. That was the idea. The scientists came up with an idea that it would cool down way faster. And so the government said, yeah, they paid them billions of dollars to dig these 40 miles of trenches up there. What did they do at Bechtel? They decided to save money and not line the trenches. And they just didn't pour it in. They just dumped all their containers and all their canisters in 40 miles of trenches, which is now seeping and leaking into the groundwater.
And they will not have to pay for the cleanup costs. It's
not only that, nobody for making that decision is held accountable. So Jeff Merkley proposed, he had a great piece of legislation that would have been, see, if somebody goes to jail, that type of behavior will end. That's the point of making someone, nobody, as long as they can get away with it and nobody's life is impeded, they are going to continue to be reckless with all human life and all life on our planet. So he had this, you know who stopped the bill from even hitting the floor of the Senate? The two main opponents to Jeff Merkley's bill, Mitch McConnell and Ron Wyden. They would not allow it to come to the floor of the Senate. So, I don't know. Well, I think we lost our caller, folks, but thank you, Mike. I think that's what you said your name was. Thanks for joining me here on the Age of Fission radio show on Call-In Friday. And thank you, Vince, for opening up that conversation, and thank you for joining us. I see that you both dropped off. But I want to really thank everybody for joining us here today. We have about 10 minutes left. And I think that conversation that I had with Vince was very helpful for me in understanding the base of what really went down, because I will tell you the truth, from the very get on the whole Bundy Ranch thing, it looked like an FBI sting to me. The whole thing, even the thing up in Burns, it never has felt right to me. It felt like it wasn't a real stance. Maybe there were obviously there were, because I think Vince went himself. And so this kind of speaks to another thing that's happening in our country. There are a lot of hidden agendas going on with a lot of dissent in different, America's kind of mezclado. We're all mixed up. We're a nation of different cultures and different peoples. And I do know just from my own activity on the YouTubes, because I've been attempting to understand like the black community right now, because I'm completely out of that community, but I'm stunned at the environmental waste that is dumped on black communities. I used to sell water maybe 15 years ago, and I made quite a living because I was willing to walk into Watts, because Watts, California, one of the poorest parts of Los Angeles, pretty gang-ridden, is built right on top of a bunch of waste sites, oil waste sites and things like that. And the kids are sick. Their water is the worst in the state. So I would sell them all water filters. And I will tell you what, like I was dumbfounded when I got into this fight about nuclear pollution to realize all of the Native American lands, a major portion of them are horrendously contaminated with nuclear waste. Inner cities and where poor people are and where people of color are, this is one of the things about that we're finding out about St. Louis, is that there are nuclear dump sites. Melancrot just dumped that stuff all over the place in unknown places, and they're just finding out. So this is what I mean about wanting the BLM. I think it's about not just the resources, but I also think it's about protecting where they have been dumping and causing problems. But I really want to thank everybody for joining us today. I am going to go out to the Environmental Law Conference, and if anybody in the Eugene area wants to go with me, I'd gladly go pick you up. Send me an email at nutsforart@gmail.com, NUTZFORART, and I'll arrange, because I'm going to go out there tomorrow. I understand at 9 o'clock in the morning there's this awesome documentary about the environment that is discussing about the nuclear pollution, but it's getting on first thing in the morning, and it doesn't have a panel. It's just a showing of a documentary. That's what Rick Gold told me from Eugene Peaceworks. So I'm going to make the effort and get up to go there. And I am going to be standing out there with a protest sign that says, "When scientists lie, people die." And I'm going to make another sign that shows all the nuclear pollution, all of the names. I'm going to post all the names of all the things that we have going, because it's not just, oh, this is just leaking into the river and it's not going to cause any harm. This stuff has hundreds of thousands of years of waste. This is unlike anything else. As Helen Caldecott told us, with the beta, all you need is a single electron in your heart. If it gets attached to your heart, your lung, your muscles, your bone, one electron of a beta radiation is enough to cause you cancer or a genetic mutation. So we're not talking about regular pollution, folks, here. This is a completely different story. So I am actually going to be going out to the Environmental Law Conference tomorrow, and there is a legal workshop. This is also at 9 o'clock. Isn't that interesting? On Sunday. Legal Ethics CLE Workshop. This is the description. They'll discuss metadata and cloud storage concerns and an examination of how lawyers can afford to ethically forget about hidden data. Ethically forget about hidden data. What does that? Isn't that code for something? That's interesting. The attorney's name is a panelist, William Carpenter. So he's going to be going on. And then there's another one, Talk is Cheap. This is at 10:35 to 11:50. The Critique of Being Green. Marcus Moraga is a current doctoral student at the U of O. So that's interesting. Talk is cheap, the critique of being green. Isn't that what we were talking about? How do we get people out? Talk, talk, talk. That's, in fact, what we've been doing. I think this is one of the biggest frustrations that we've seen in the anti-nuclear movement is people don't get out. They don't put their bodies out. They do not stick their necks out. They don't call their congressmen. They don't call their senators. I don't know how we're going to change this unless we actively engage in what forms a government. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an anarchist. I think that there is a structure that makes things work. Humans always, we can't. Out of anarchy comes order. So whenever, excuse me, my niece is visiting us. I think that you guys might have heard that. So I want to thank Vince and I want to thank Mike for calling in. And I want to share with you more of this because this is just stunning. The forest, the next fire time, fire planning and forest plan revisions. You'd think that if we were going to be burning the forest, we'd be talking about the nuclear pollution that is going to be incinerated when we burn the forests. Litigation for climate after Paris Agreement. This is another one that's going to be being done. Birding with Professor Paris. This would be very interesting. I wonder if they have seen any changes in the birds. I know there's a conversation that's going on today about the strategies for the fish and the salmon, like what's happening to the salmon and all of that. There's also one, the beef between public land grazing, western wildlife, and meat production. And I think this is the one where they were talking about how do we stop this. It literally in their brochure, let me see if I could find that, actually. That was really amazing. They were talking about how do they stop the movement for to stop, what they say, stop the Bundy movement. That's exactly what they said. So I mean, it was pretty interesting. Let's see if I can pull up this website, and I guess this is where we need the little music to come in, because I'm going to look at this website and see if I can find the brochure, because the brochure was pretty shocking. So let me see. That's where I saw this link. Let me see. This is the PDF, and it talks about all of these things that it needs. Reducing the carbon footprint. That's one of the biggest things, is reducing the carbon footprint. And so they are actually going to be having all kinds of speakers. And I think, if you want to get into all of these things, I think you can go sit in on the meetings. But if you want to get into everything, it costs a little bit of money. So, and there's not very many tickets to get into everything. So, Director Blood on the Mountain with Mary Lynn Evans, and Sewage Sludge, In Your Water, In Your Food, Ethics Workshop, 9 to 11. I mean, is it ethical for them to ignore Fukushima? That's kind of my thing, is it really ethical? Can they honestly say they have any ethics if they're not talking about nuclear pollution? Is one of the worst contaminants. And yes, I know Monsanto is just completely evil in destroying our food supply. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand, just like the chemtrails. They all go hand in hand, and I think it has to do with population control through technological pollution. I guess we could say that, right? But one of the things Goffin was talking about is really how unique the nuclear pollution is, in that it really does destroy life 4, 5, 6, 7 generations away, And in the meantime, we have nobody talking about it at these environmental law conferences. So I'm definitely going to be going over there to protest tomorrow. I'm going to be standing outside with some signs. I don't know how close I'll be able. I mean, I can stand across the street at the law school. It's right in Eugene, and, I'm just dumbfounded. I've been calling them up. I didn't even bother calling them this year. The last 3 years, I've called them up and said, are you going to do anything about Fukushima? They're like, well, we don't really see that as an issue. And they honestly, I think this is it. They really don't believe that nuclear pollution is all that bad. Many of them will say, yeah, what we really need to do is, get more nuclear pollution and learn how to cure it, how to fix it, So no, there's no solution for nuclear waste. It's killing our planet. We cannot have anything nuclear. It's not an option. Well, I see that we're nearing the end of the hour, you guys. Thank you for joining me. This was Call-In Friday, kind of a lively call. I thank you, Vince, and thank you, Mike, for calling in, because, these issues that you guys discussed about the BLM, excuse me. And I honestly was completely unaware of Jerry Dilemmas, the co-chair for Veterans for Trump in New Hampshire, who got arrested. And I don't really understand the whole story, so I'm not going to comment on it. But, I appreciate the fact that people are standing up for what they believe in. And that's what makes us Americans. We do have a right to do that. They can subvert our Constitution, but they can't take away what we have now come to take it. We kind of take it for granted that we have a right to freedom of speech. And I think these are the doors slamming down on us, but all of us need to be speaking out. And this is why I'm going to go protest at the Environmental Law Conference, and they'll all their eyes are going to look away from me. They're not going to want to talk about it. I already know. I've seen that a million times. But I'm still going to continue to do it. And anybody that wants to join me, please do, because we need numbers. That's what went wrong with these guys taking their stance on the land. There's not enough people. If we had millions of people, the scenario would be quite different. So put your courage feet on, take action, get engaged, be public. Go park yourself on your elected officials' doorsteps. Put your courage feet on. Thank you for joining us. We'll be speaking to someone from St. Louis on Monday. Thank you, everybody, and have a good weekend.